Hello everyone. Hello and welcome to MyData-NEWS, the channel of MyData-TRUST. With my colleague Victoria, we will host this show called MyData-NEWS every month with news about data protection and the clinical sector. We will not hesitate to interview our colleagues, but also external experts in the sector to share also their ideas.
Yeah, just a quick summary. So MyData-TRUST is a multidisciplinary team, including data privacy lawyer, IT security specialist, and clinical experts. So this unique association of skills and knowledge allow to quickly and efficiently address our clients' needs in providing a range of services and solutions aligned with both pharmaceutical research and development and GDPR requirements. So I just want to present also my colleague Manon from the legal department. So let's go to the hot news of this month. So first we'll start with the life science news.
Artificial intelligence has significant and important benefits, including improvement for the healthcare sector. The proposal for an EU AI regulation is the first of its kind in the world. It introduced new AI governance provisions to guarantee the fundamental rights of EU citizens while fostering innovation. And this regulation, which is likely to impact quite a few actors who provide and use AI systems within the EU, is not expected until the end of the ratification process, which can last between 2 or 5 years. And for example, in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic, the healthcare sector was able to benefit from AI devices in the fight against the virus, particularly to detect patients most at risk of developing COVID-19 complications. And as a result of that, many hospitals are now building their own algorithm within patient data. And the FDA has deemed useful to proceed with the regulation of AI tools in healthcare, where the main question arises as to how and what information will be communicated to patients and doctors on the use of these tools.
After that, in the interview with AstraZeneca Group, our Chief Operation Officer, we discussed about the use of health data. The processing of health data that raised many questions about its use and its second life. In today's healthcare system, it is crucial to strike the correct balance between protection of personal information and enablement of data reuse for research purposes. When I asked her, what do you reply when a client asks you, can you do this or can you do that? She replied to me that GDPR has little prohibition. It's not black or white. It's not about whether you can do this or that. It's about realizing that what you are doing can bring risk to data subjects and manage this data conscientiously and in a responsible manner in compliance with the GDPR. Finally, in the UK, the Age-Appropriate Design Code mandates websites and apps to take the best interest of their child user into account, or face fines of up to 4% of the annual global turnover. I will say that all websites and apps are subject to this code unless they can prove their services is not likely to be used at all by children. This code will lead to changes that will help empower both adults and children, because 1 in 5 internet users are children. We already see that TikTok, Google, YouTube have already introduced significant changes to how they treat child users.
The NHS England announced a large-scale trial of potential early cancer tests. So that's big news. NHS is set to begin the world's largest scale trial of a new blood test that can detect over 50 types of cancer in the earliest stage of disease progression. The large-scale test will aim to recruit more than 1,000 volunteers in 8 areas of England. And so when a tumor is detected at the early stage, patients typically have more treatment options and are 5 to 10 times more likely to survive compared with those detected at stage 4, which is the most advanced.
The new NHS programs want to make patient data available to private companies. As part of a government plan, medical data from general practitioners across England, whose identity have been partially removed, will be made available to researchers and companies for research and healthcare planning purposes. One of the goals of this project will be to make patient data available to private companies. However, more than 1 million people actually opted out of this NHS data sharing. As a result, the program is now on hold, with no new implementation date, and the NHS Digital has made a series of concessions to campaigners in an attempt to save it.
In France, CNIL confirms data breach by APHP affecting 1.4 million tested for COVID-19. So CNIL released a statement announcing that it had been informed of a data breach at the Assistance Publique Hôpitaux de Paris, affecting the personal data of 1.4 million individuals tested for COVID-19 in 2020. And in particular, CNIL reminded affected data subjects that they will be directly notified by the APHP and that they should not access the breach file. The categories of personal data affected by the breach include first name, surnames, date of birth, genders, social security numbers, email addresses, etc., as well as the nature and result of the test which was taken. The US Federal Trade Commission has clarified that health apps must notify consumers about data breaches or they will face fine. The idea is that apps and devices that collect personal health information must notify customers if their data has been either breached or shared with third parties without their permission. Unauthorized access to personal data, which encompasses the sharing of personal information without a person's permission, can also qualify, thereby necessitating notification.
Brief summary on the horizon of 2022 in European healthcare. For instance, we have found that in the UK, this year, the government introduced the Medicines and Medical Device Act. The new act is framework legislation which gives the Secretary of State wide power to adopt a new regulatory framework for medicines and medical devices. In September, the UK government published a consultation on the future regulation for medical device setting out purposes options for a new regulatory framework. In France, new laws on telemedicine and notably telesurveillance are expected to be adopted next year in 2022, broadening the scope of what is currently permitted. And in Spain, a new regulation on medical devices is expected to be approved in the near future. A draft has already been subject to public information and consultation. In addition, legislation on veterinary medicines is also pending repeal by a new regulation, which has already been subject to public information. Now we will continue with the data protection hot news. The Irish DPO fined WhatsApp with €2,025 million for violating European private rules. The penalty is the second largest under the European Union with the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. Just to remind you, the GDPR allows regulators to slap companies with penalty of up to 4% of their annual revenue if they mishandle people's data. The record was just in July with Amazon. We can see that the Silicon Valley biggest names have mostly avoided the new rules, but there are no more checks and balances through increased enforcement of the 27 countries bloc from the EU that has been criticized for its inability to control the worst data abuse of big tech companies.
CNIL has issued a formal notice to some 40 actors who still do not allow to refuse cookies as easily as to accept them. So 80% of actors concerned have complied. But CNIL continues its controls and will pronounce the necessary corrective measures against illegal practices. But one big guideline to follow here is rejecting cookies should be as easy as accepting them. organizations that fail to comply may be subject to monetary penalties of up to 2% of their turnover. And new monitoring campaigns are being prepared now. So like the previous one, they will continue to target national and international private actors, but also public organizations whose website generate significant traffic.
The Irish Data Protection Commission has been labeled the GDPR rules bottleneck, which pushed the European Commission to intervene. The DPC takes the lead on many high-profile data protection cases, given that the European headquarters of many major tech companies are based in Ireland. The DPC, so the Data Protection Commission of Ireland, has left unaddressed like 98% of the cases brought since the introduction of the GDPR in 2018.
And now some updates about the legislation. So what about China legislation? The Personal Information Protection Law, what we call PIPL, was finally adopted last August 20 and will take effect on November 1, so next week. 4 key elements can be highlighted here. They intend to protect the rights and interests of individuals, to regulate personal information processing activities, to safeguard the lawful and orderly flow of data, to facilitate a reasonable use of personal information. So PIPL clearly states China's ambition to take a full part in international data protection discussion. And it's critical for any company which carries out processing of personal information of people located within China to conduct data mapping and gap analysis to evaluate whether it needs to develop or update its data privacy policies and procedure to fully comply with PIPL.
The ICO consultation is relevant to anyone who transfers personal data from the UK or who provides services to UK organizations. This public consultation mentions several points, as the territorial scope, so the ICO also asks if one joint controller is established in the UK, if it will be automatically means UK data protection legislation will apply to the other joint controllers. Another point is the new UK IDTA, so International Data Transfer Agreement, but also the Transfer Risk Assessment, and also the changes to existing UK guidance on data transfer.
Some news of UK data protection reforms. The British Information Commissioner wants to present a vision of the future, where browser users can consent to cookies in a more meaningful way than with current methods. So many people think that cookie consent forms are off-putting, and research has shown that consent forms do not give consumers a meaningful choice. The ICO has called on its G7 counterparts of digital regulators to take action against the cookie consent pop-ups that have become unavoidable after the GDPR went into effect.
Pakistan released an updated consultation draft on Pakistan's personal data protection bill. Currently, more than 100 countries have data protection laws in place. And with the increase in the use of technology and businesses collecting more and more personal data, there has been a growing concern about data privacy worldwide and even in Pakistan. Pakistan doesn't live in an isolated world, so also we must adopt a human rights-centric approach to data privacy instead of business-oriented.
During its last plenary, the EDPB adopted its opinion on the European Commission's draft adequacy decision for Republic of Korea. So EDPB focused on general GDPR aspects and access by public authorities to personal data transfer from the EEA to Republic of Korea for the purposes of law enforcement and national security, including the legal remedies available to individuals in the EEA. EDPB also assessed whether the safeguards provided under Korean legal framework are effective. And they are core aspects of Korean data protection framework that are essentially equivalent to those of the EU, but Commission will further clarify certain aspects and closely monitor the situation.
And recently, Uruguay amended its data protection regime and excluded the USA from the list of eligible territories to establish data flows. As a reminder, Uruguay obtained an EU adequacy decision to transfer personal data in 2012, and its data protection law bans the transfer of data to a country that doesn't provide an adequate level of protection. Basically, their standard of adequate level of protection follows, among others, the EU standard set out in the GDPR. Therefore, Uruguay removed the USA from the list of the eligible territories for data transfer, and in fact, the adequacy decisions are not eternal.
Thank you, Victoria. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We hope you enjoyed this video. Do not hesitate to subscribe to our channel. And
see you next month.
We hope to see you next month.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you.